who, no, it's not them. It's much Ellis. They're the ones working with us. Kirkland and Ellis helped us on a different case involving fair housing and people who are deaf and hard of hearing. So I think it's much Ellis. So it's great. That's when we partner with private firms who help us out with that. So that's kind of the most significant thing happening in fair housing or in our legal area right now. A big threat right now to people with disabilities. There's a number of threats. There's always a number of threats to people with disabilities these days. But one of them is there is a bill that's been introduced in the House called the Americans with Disabilities Act, Reform Act, I think it's called, the ADA Reform Act, I think it's called. And that is a reaction to one of the problems or some of the backlash that the Americans with Disabilities Act gets is in response to what are called drive-by lawsuits. And that's when kind of a freelancing attorney will find someone with a disability, and they'll get that person with a disability to file a whole wave of complaints in a city or in an area. It happened here in River North a few years ago where there was multiple, somewhere between 3 and 5 complaints were filed against 3 to 5 different private retail outlets. One was a coffee shop that I like to go to on Fridays and pick up my coffee, and then a deli, and then a flower shop, and then I think there were a couple of others. So what they'll do is they'll go and they'll look for a storefront business that maybe doesn't have a ramp or has a ramp that's not up to code, and they'll file a complaint against them under the Americans with Disabilities Act, which you have a right to do under the law. But the problem is what they'll do is, without necessarily expecting the company to make changes that will benefit the community of people with disabilities, they'll they'll just get money, they'll pay a fee in damages, and then the lawyer and the person with disability will move on and file more complaints. And so there's this reputation of this happening a lot, and it just being a money-making scam. So this new law that's being introduced, what it basically does is it requires people with disabilities, if they want to use the law to file a complaint, to kind of jump through all these hoops ahead of time and give a lot of notice to the people that they're filing against, and which we do originally. We'll very rarely will we file a complaint without communicating first with the business or with whoever it is where the issue is, and give them a chance to make changes or get education about the law. And it's only when we go back and forth in negotiations not going anywhere, will we then resort to a complaint. But with this new law, if it's passed, it will just make it very difficult for individuals with disabilities to use the law, the ADA, as a tool on their own effectively, and it will put a lot more responsibility on the individual with the disability. So we're trying to stop that. There's been other incarnations of the law in years past that haven't gotten enough support, but today's a different climate, and so we're worried about what might happen now. Another threat, to the disability community is the Healthcare Act that was passed by the House yesterday. Even though all the claims that were made about protections for people with pre-existing conditions, most of the experts will tell you that's, that is not true. Under the current law as it is now that was passed in the House, if you're someone with a pre-existing condition, the chances are that your premiums will be a lot higher. The specific coverage that you need won't be covered necessarily. Deductibles could be higher, and insurance companies also, or states don't necessarily have to create these what are called the high-risk pools. And from what I've heard also, the money that goes into high-risk pools, which is supposed to support people with pre-existing conditions to help offset the cost of higher premiums and deductibles, that money doesn't necessarily have to go to that support. They could be used for other things. So a lot of people are concerned and are going to fight even harder to try to stop it from passage in the Senate. So maybe I'll stop there and see if you all have a specific question.